Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is Nicola Sturgeon, who's been branded shameful for telling lies to the Scottish public about what she was doing during COVID lockdowns. Now, this story comes from an article done in the Scottish Daily Express, where they have got a hold of some freedom of information requests. And I think, although they haven't told you in the story, they have asked the Scottish Government for any emails, etc., pertaining to the SNP's idea of building a new Scotland prospectus during the dates of lockdowns. And it turns out Nicola Sturgeon, who's been telling us, not only at the time that every waking hour she was just concerned about the Scottish people's health and trying to protect us all, but she even said the same story under the UK COVID inquiry, where she declared that she didn't politicise the COVID and she didn't try to use it as a tool to get, or at any time during COVID, look into making Scotland independent. And it turns out she lied. She talks absolute nonsense. So she was telling us all lies for those couple of years during lockdown, and she seems to have done the same at the UK COVID inquiry, because this freedom of information says that the former First Minister was blasted after it was revealed the Scottish Government started work on independence referendum bill and building a new Scotland prospectuses, while Scots were still locked in their homes. So she wasn't doing as she said. Nicola Sturgeon kick-started work on Scottish independence in midst of the COVID pandemic. The Scottish Daily Express can reveal the former First Minister promised during the COVID inquiry that she wasn't trying to break up the UK and was instead focusing on keeping the citizens of Scotland safe. But she instructed her officials to begin work on her building a new Scotland series of prospectuses, which didn't launch until 2022. The documents set out what the country would look like if Skeks had happened, including joining the European Union, keeping the pound and trade borders. Now, the stuff that she was doing in that time is ridiculous. Even the thing with Spain, which will come up in this story, disgusting. In briefings about the series released by the Scottish Daily Express through Freedom of Information legislation, government press officers discuss how to respond if they are asked about independence work being undertaken during the pandemic as part of proactive action. So they'd lined up their answers when, while in the background, they were working on independence ideas. They confirmed that work on the prospectus did begin while Scotland was in the grasp of the virus. Work began in early 2021 on a draft bill for an independence referendum, and then a team undertook some initial scoping and planning work on the building a new Scotland series over the winter of 2021. So that's at the start of 2021 and at the end. Twice they were doing stuff. Okay, they were drafting the bill for the independence referendum, which ultimately failed. We'll come to that in a minute. And working on these prospectuses, these white papers that they were issuing right up until recently when John Swinney stopped producing them. You know, they had some ridiculous things. I'd done a video on it. It was completely bonkers. One of the white papers that they released said that it was pointing out the benefits of independence. And some of the things cited was just laughable. My own personal favourite was Scotland will have its own entrant in the Eurovision Song Contest if we're independent. Barking mad, right? So all this work was getting done by the government. Well, Nicola stood on the podium saying, no, every waking minute of every hour and day, I'm spending trying to save the country. A lot of dribble, right? Total drivel. In January 2021, Scotland went back into lockdown after a huge increase in cases after rules were relaxed for the festive period. We'll come back after that, the next festive period, we get told to stay in the house again. More than 1,000 people in the UK died of COVID on average each day in January, well, registered as COVID deaths. It wasn't until April 21 when the stay-at-home guidance was relaxed and the stay local was introduced, with pubs and hotels then opening later that month. So we were all locked away and she's planning independence. During the time period when Scots were locked at home, the Scottish Government was preparing a draft bill for the independence referendum, which was eventually blocked at the UK Supreme Court. If you remember, Nicola in London all greeting saying, bugger it, we're just going to have a de facto referendum. That failed miserably because that was at the last general election, but there's still no shut up about independence. Ms Sturgeon, then in the winter of 2021, Ms Sturgeon decided to bring back 1 metre social distancing forcing hospitality businesses to shut ahead of the Hogmanay in that year due to concerns over the Omicron variant. This was the even worse thing that was coming. Get them locked down. England didn't bother, they were partying on, but we got all locked away and Omicron was a whimper. This turned out to be a false alarm, but while Scots were banned from pubs, while the English revellers partied, officials in the SNP executive were plotting that it's building a new Scotland prospectuses. This is the white papers that I was talking about. A total of 13 of these papers had been published before being paused by John Swinney. At the time, there's more about him as well. He's not getting off scot-free with this one. Wait to hear what he was doing. At the time these independence discussions were happening, people were still required to wear a face mask covering in public transport and most indoor public settings. The general population were still tested regularly. These revelations also shed doubts on Ms Sturgeon's tearful performance at the UK COVID inquiry, where she insisted that she was not seeking political conflict during the pandemic. You tartanised everything, right? You would go to these COVID disaster meetings with all the other folk for like Westminster and the Senate and the Assembly in Northern Ireland, and you would run out and get stuff put out before the UK government, which was like, know what you were meant to be doing. And you tartanise, if they had 3 levels to get us back out of COVID lockdown, you'd have 5, right? It was just nonsense. It was just tartanising the recommendations. Anyway, her advisor was caught. Remember this, Liz Lloyd messaged about, let's cause a rammy with Westminster over COVID. This was what they were planning to do, and did do. Cause a rammy with Westminster. Let's annoy them so that we fall out, right? And then we can go, look at the bad folk down in Westminster, your usual MO of the separatist. Where they played out, the former First Minister claimed the idea that those horrendous few days, weeks, I was thinking of political opportunity was not the case. I never done that, says Nicola. Aye, you did. And this is a bit where John Swinney comes in here, and this bit was just dreadful. The inquiry was shown an email which voiced concerns that the Spanish government would block an independent Scotland from joining the EU if it did not lift travel restrictions. Obviously, the Spanish like us Scottish people, because we like a wee bit of sun and Benidorm and the likes, and we spend a few quid on booze, right? So the Spaniards are like that. Yous are still not coming here. If yous don't lift that ban, yous get independence, yous try to enter the EU, we'll veto it. Days later, Scotland lifted its travel ban to Spain. But Nicola claims, what did she say? I was not thinking of political opportunity, that was not the case. Okay, Nicola. So this email was then sent on July the 19th from the Deputy First Minister at the time, who was John Swinney. These restrictions were then lifted days later, although they were reimposed later on due to levels of COVID being high in both countries, Scotland and Spain. So they couldn't argue for that. Ms Sturgeon claimed that none of her decisions during the pandemic, none of them, beat my wee heart, right, were influenced in any way by political considerations or by trying to gain an advantage for the cause of independence. Okay, Nicola. She added it was motivated solely by trying to do the best we could to keep people as safe as possible. This was in the bit of the COVID inquiry. She started getting emotional, and I tried my best, and if I made any mistakes, they weren't deliberate, and bugger off. And all this, I remember that day well. I was screaming I was watching it in this laptop in front of me, screaming at it, shut up, you crackpot, right? She frustrates the hell out of me. So then, and then the Tories have lambasted and blah, blah, blah. It's utterly shameful that Nicola Sturgeon's government was plotting to break up the United Kingdom when tough COVID restrictions remained in place and our NHS has been battered by the pandemic. And that came from Scottish Tory leader, the Scottish Conservative Deputy Leader, Rachel Hamilton, MSP. So there we go. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please subscribe and hit the notifications bell, and YouTube will let you know when I put new videos out. Put your comments and opinions below. Please always like them, and it does really help me because it helps the algorithm. Sorry, I beg your pardon. And YouTube are more likely to put it into more people if there's good activity on this video. So please do that. And at the end of the video, as it's playing out, there'll be a wee recommendation down here from YouTube. That's a video that they think you'll like that you've not already watched yet. But most importantly of all, unless you're the type of person like Nicola Sturgeon that sits here with the crocodile tears, I've done my best for Scotland. I was never political during COVID. A lot of nonsense, you lying bint. Right, no you, but...
Everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.